Hello, this is Matt Kehoe responding to the Iron-Jawed Angels film. I just watched it a few hours ago this evening. I'm just here to talk about some of the questions that were prompted of us. What marked the change in tactics from the so-called first wave of progressive feminism, that era 1, and the second wave of progressivism with era 2 was they transitioned from passive demonstrations to more active demonstrations, as we saw in the start of the movie when Hillary Swank was standing on the side of the street handing out flyers, and people passed her by, but they didn't really pay much attention. They just sort of took them, or the flyers, or just ignored her sometimes. The impact of World War I on women's suffrage was a bit more notable than in the Civil War. During the Civil War, the women's rights movement, the suffrage movement, somewhat stalled out. Really, it just took a back seat to the abolition movement and the movements to grant African American males the right to vote. And they sort of basically compromised, hoping that they would get their fair shake later on, which 80 years later or so, 60 years later, they did. In the World War I era, however, the suffrage movement continued for the duration of the war, and it fed off the added controversy of it fed off the added controversy of the war in general by just, it's like the old news saying, any controversy is, or any news is good news. They fed off that and tried to gain more attention to themselves by protesting against the president on the front lawn of the White House, as we saw in film. In today's world, some of the results of women getting the vote, well, women have we opened a floodgate of female participation in government. At the I'm just checking here. Last tally, I counted some 40 senators, 25 cabinet members, 4 Supreme Court justices, and frankly, there's too many representatives in the House of Representatives to even count, but at least hundreds, perhaps. And this is all thanks in part to, really thanks to women getting the right to vote and being able to make that first participatory step in involving themselves in government. And now we have Hillary Clinton is the Secretary of State. There's 3 current Supreme Court justices are women. This coming January, there will be more women in the Senate than there has ever been in history. This is obviously the results the numbers speak for themselves. In regards to movements or groups or demographics today that could benefit from the lessons learned by the women's suffrage movement in the early 20th century, well, 2 big ones that I was able to pick out were the gay rights movement, and in another instance was the plight of illegal immigrants or recent immigrants. And I have a feeling that they could implement the same strategy as the suffragettes employed in the film
And they would be better off doing it today, because from 1912 to 1916 to 1920, when the film took place, almost 100 years later, there's an entire century of courses and rules about police involvement where you'd be much safer at your physical well-being. You would be much better off attempting actions that suffragettes used in 1920 and 1910s today without as much fear of reprisal. But it